The first thing Lila Bennett did after Damian Moretti chose her was choke on cheesecake. Not elegantly, not delicately. She actually choked. 1 second, she was standing beside the dessert table enjoying the first peaceful 30 seconds she'd had all evening. And the next, 200 people were staring at her. Lila coughed into her hand. Her eyes watered. The tiny silver fork nearly fell from her fingers. Across the garden, Damian Moretti was pointing directly at her, and nobody seemed interested in explaining why. Lila swallowed, looked behind herself. Nothing. She looked again. Still nothing. Just a 6-foot arrangement of white roses, a waiter carrying champagne, and an elderly man who immediately stepped sideways when he realized Damian's finger might possibly be pointing in his direction. Lila frowned, then looked down at the miniature raspberry cheesecake in her hand. Ah, that made more sense. The dessert. Of course, perhaps the owner of the estate wanted one. Strange way to request pastry. But wealthy people had been asking Lila for ridiculous things since 6 that morning. One woman had requested candles that smelled less financially anxious. Lila still didn't know what that meant. So she picked up another cheesecake, raised it toward Damian, and gave him a questioning look. The reaction around her was immediate. Someone gasped. A woman near the fountain whispered, "She thinks he wants the cake." Another woman whispered back, "Oh my God." Lila heard both. She slowly lowered the cheesecake. All right. Apparently not the cake. Damian started toward her, and that was when the crowd did something Lila had never seen 200 wealthy people do efficiently. They moved. No instruction, no confusion, no arguments. A path simply opened through the center of the garden. Damian Moretti walked through it. Black suit, black shirt, no tie. Tall enough to make half the men around him look unfairly assembled. Broad shoulders, dark hair, expression calm enough to be concerning. Behind him came 2 men Lila had seen around the estate all evening. Security. Definitely security. The kind of security that did not look as though their employment involved checking invitations. Lila stared, then quickly looked down at herself. Pink evening gown. Fine. Shoes. Fine. Name badge. Gone. Good. Cheesecake cream. Oh. Lila touched her cheek. There was cream on it. Wonderful. Of all the moments in her 29 years of life, for fate to suddenly develop an interest in her, it had selected one where she was wearing dessert. Her phone vibrated inside her clutch. She ignored it. It vibrated again. Ignored. Again. Lila closed her eyes. Aunt Gloria. It had to be Aunt Gloria. No other human being could create urgency through vibration alone. Damian was getting closer. Lila wiped her cheek. A waiter passing beside her glanced over. Lila caught him. "Gone?" The waiter looked at her face, then immediately looked frightened. Not because of the cream, because Damian Moretti was now approximately 12 feet away. Lila pointed at her cheek. The waiter nodded too quickly. She wiped again. He shook his head. Wrong direction. She wiped the other side. His eyes widened. Apparently worse. Lila sighed. "You've been extremely helpful." The waiter abandoned her. Actually abandoned her. He walked away, carrying his tray like a man escaping an active crime scene. Lila stared after him. Traitor. Then Damian stopped in front of her. The entire garden seemed to lean closer. Lila looked up. And up. Good Lord. Photographs had been misleading. The man was annoyingly handsome. Not friendly handsome. No. Damian Moretti looked like someone had taken every warning sign Lila's mother had ever given her about men, put them into an expensive black suit, and added excellent bone structure. His eyes moved briefly to the cheesecake, then to Lila. She raised it again. Just in case. Raspberry. Nothing. I can get you chocolate. A man standing several feet behind Damian suddenly turned his face away. His shoulders moved. He was laughing. Lila saw him. So did Damian. Damien didn't even turn around. Luca. The man's shoulders stopped moving. Mostly. Lila's eyebrows lifted. Interesting. Apparently the terrifying man had a friend with poor survival instincts. Damien looked back at her. I wasn't pointing at the cheesecake. Lila nodded slowly. Yes, I've gathered that. She looked behind herself one more time. Damien watched her do it. There is nobody behind you. I like to verify information. You've verified it 3 times. So you've been counting. Something happened to his expression. Tiny. Almost nothing. But Lila saw it. A flicker near his mouth. She narrowed her eyes. Did you almost smile? No. You did. No. The man behind him made another sound. This time, Lila was certain it was laughter. Damien didn't look at him. Lila did. He agrees with me. He doesn't. Your friend seems very expressive for someone you're answering for. That was when the man finally stepped closer. He was handsome too, though differently. Less terrifying. More entertained. Luca Romano. Lila nodded. Lila Bennett. I know. That was slightly concerning. Before she could ask why, Damien extended his hand. Lila stared at it, then at him, then at the 100-and-something people who had apparently decided the Moretti Charity Gala was no longer about charity. Every phone in the immediate vicinity seemed pointed toward them. Lila's phone vibrated again. She finally pulled it out. 23 unread messages. Lila's heart sank. The latest was from Aunt Gloria. Lila. Then another appeared. Why is Damien Moretti standing in front of you? Lila's eyes widened. How? Another message. The internet moves fast. Don't question miracles. Another. Smile. Another. Not like that. Lila slowly looked around. Somebody was already live streaming. Of course. She looked back at Damien. He was still holding out his hand. Lila slipped her phone away. Then placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm. Steady. Dangerously comfortable. She disliked that immediately. Then Damien said, I'd like you to spend the evening with me. Silence. Lila blinked. Behind her, something shattered. A glass. Nobody moved to clean it. Lila's event planner soul screamed. Her eyes shot toward the sound. A waiter immediately crouched to collect the pieces. Fine. She looked back at Damien. Spend the evening with you. Yes. You mean, socially? Yes. That seemed important to establish. You're aware I'm working? Yes. Because if this is a complaint about the centerpieces, I have a florist I can sacrifice. That did it. Luca laughed, out loud. Several guests stared at him as if he'd just slapped the Pope. Damien looked at Luca. Luca straightened. Apologies. He wasn't sorry. Lila could tell. Damien returned his attention to her. I know you're working. Good. A pause. Then I'm confused. I know. That answer irritated her more than it should have. Before Lila could respond, a woman in a silver gown appeared beside them. Damien! Her voice changed when she saw Lila. Oh. Lila knew that woman. Very well. Claudia Whitmore. An hour earlier, Claudia had called Lila across half the garden because her chair was allegedly too close to the hydrangeas. Lila had moved the chair 6 inches. Claudia had inspected the result and said, much better. Now Claudia's smile was enormous. She turned to Lila. I don't think we've met. Lila stared at her. Oh, this was going to be good. She looked at Claudia, then toward the hydrangeas, then back at Claudia. No? Claudia shook her head brightly. I would remember. Lila nearly laughed. Of course she would. She had remembered Lila perfectly well when ordering her to move furniture. Apparently Damien Moretti standing beside her had altered Claudia's memory. Lila smiled sweetly. Lila Bennett, Claudia Whitmore. Yes, I know. Claudia paused. Only a second. Damien noticed. So did Luca. Lila continued pleasantly. Table 6. Hydrangeas. Claudia's face changed. Barely. It was glorious. Oh, Lila smiled wider. Yes. Damien turned his head. Not enough to laugh. Just enough for Lila to know he was enjoying this. Claudia recovered quickly. Well, you look lovely. Thank you. And how do you know Damien? There it was. Lila looked at Damien. Damien looked at her. Technically, they had known each other for approximately 90 seconds. She considered telling Claudia exactly that. Before she could, Damien's hand moved. Quietly. Naturally. It settled at the small of Lila's back. Lila stopped thinking. Completely. Not because he'd grabbed her. He hadn't. The touch was light. Almost polite. But it was so effortless that her body reacted before her common sense had time to file an objection. Damien looked at Claudia. I noticed her. 4 words. That was all. Claudia's eyes widened. Lila's did too. What did that mean? Apparently half the garden had the same question. Because whispers began multiplying around them. Damien Moretti had noticed her. Lila Bennett, the event planner. The woman who had spent most of the evening carrying schedules and quietly telling millionaires they couldn't smoke beside silk drapes. Within 30 seconds, everything changed. People began approaching. Not one, not two, everybody. Suddenly Lila was fascinating. A businessman who had walked directly past her 3 times that afternoon now came over smiling, as if they were cousins. A woman who had complained that Lila's earrings were too casual for the atmosphere suddenly wanted to know where she'd bought them. Another guest praised the party. You've done an extraordinary job. Lila stared. The same man had blamed her 20 minutes earlier because it was humid. Apparently Damien's hand had transformed her into a meteorologist with social value. Lila looked at him. Thank you. You really have an eye for these things. I did this afternoon too. The man froze. Luca looked down. His mouth twitched. Damien's hand remained against Lila's back. Warm. Still. The realization hit her then. Not romance. Something stranger. These people had not changed because Lila had changed. They had changed because Damien had chosen her. An hour ago, she had been staff. Now, she was someone standing beside Damien Moretti. And suddenly everybody wanted her to remember them kindly. Lila looked slowly around the garden. Interesting. Very interesting. A woman who had spent 10 minutes criticizing the tablecloths now waved at her. Lila waved back. Another man lifted his champagne glass. Lila smiled. She was starting to enjoy this far too much. Then she saw Sebastian Moretti, and the fun stopped. He stood on the far side of the garden. White dinner jacket, champagne glass, easy smile. Damien's cousin had been charming everyone all night. Lila knew, because Sebastian was one of those guests event planners remembered for good reasons. He said thank you. He learned staff names. He didn't create emergencies simply because he could afford them. But he wasn't smiling now. Not for 1 second. The instant Damien touched Lila's back, Sebastian's expression changed. His hand tightened around his glass. His eyes moved from Damien to Lila, then toward the house. He looked worried. No. Lila frowned. Not worried. Alarmed. Then Sebastian noticed her watching. The smile returned. Instantly. Smooth. Perfect. Too perfect. Lila felt something crawl quietly along the back of her neck. Damien's voice came beside her. Don't look at him again. Lila kept smiling. Her eyes remained on the woman in front of her. You saw that? Yes. So did I. I know. Well, that was interesting. Lila accepted a champagne glass from a waiter. Didn't drink. Mostly because she was still trying to understand why Damien Moretti had suddenly turned her work shift into an international incident. Another guest approached. Then another. Damien endured perhaps 3 minutes, then leaned slightly toward Lila. Walk with me. His mouth was close enough to her ear that several nearby women visibly noticed. Lila's pulse did something irritating. She kept her expression composed. Is this part of whatever you're doing? Yes. Do I get to know what you're doing? Yes. When? When people stop listening. Lila glanced at the guests, pretending not to listen. One woman immediately looked away. Lila almost laughed. That's going to take a while. Damien held out his hand. Again. And because Lila's curiosity had apparently decided to ruin her peaceful life, she took it. They started across the garden. The crowd watched. Every single person. Lila felt their eyes moving with them. Then something catastrophic happened near the terrace. A young server turned too quickly. His elbow caught the base of a champagne tower. The bottom glass shifted. Lila saw it. Her entire body reacted. Oh no! She dropped Damien's hand. Damien stopped. Lila was already moving. She reached the table just as the first two glasses began sliding. One hand caught the base. Another server grabbed the side. Lila barked two quick instructions. A tray disappeared beneath the tower. 3 glasses fell. Only 3. One broke. The rest survived. Lila exhaled. The young server looked terrified. I'm sorry, Miss Bennett. Don't apologize. Reset the bottom row. And please stop using the narrow table. I asked for the wide one. Yes, ma'am. Lila straightened. Then remembered Damien Moretti was standing behind her. Watching, along with half the party. She smoothed her dress. What? Damien looked at the rescued champagne tower. Then at her. You abandoned me. It was falling. I noticed. Then why didn't you catch it? Luca made a sound somewhere behind them. Lila turned. He was laughing again. She pointed at him. I like him. Damien's expression flattened. That will pass. It hasn't for you. Luca stopped laughing. Lila looked between them. Oh, that's adorable. Neither man appreciated that. Excellent. She took Damien's arm again. Continue. Damien glanced at her hand on his sleeve. You're giving orders now? I've been giving orders since 6 this morning. You're simply new. That almost smile appeared again. Only this time, Lila didn't tease him about it. Because Sebastian was gone. She noticed immediately. The place near the fountain was empty. Damien noticed too. And this time, his expression changed. They walked faster, not enough for anyone to notice, just enough that Lila did. He led her through the French doors, past the ballroom, down a quieter corridor. Guests could still see them through the glass, so Damien remained close. His hand returned to her waist. Lila pretended not to notice how easily he did it. Then they turned the corner, out of sight. Damien released her, instantly. The warmth disappeared from her back. Lila hated that she noticed that too. He opened a small library door. She walked inside. Damien followed. The door closed. And everything changed. No crowd, no cameras, no smiles, no touching. Damien Moretti turned toward her, and Lila suddenly understood that whatever had happened outside had not been spontaneous. She folded her arms. All right. Damien said nothing. Lila waited. Still nothing. She frowned. You've pointed at me in front of half the city, destroyed my aunt's remaining common sense, caused Claudia Whitmore to forget we met 47 minutes ago, and made 3 women near the fountain look like they want my address for criminal reasons. A beat. I feel I've earned an explanation. Damien looked toward the closed door, then back at her. I chose you because Sebastian wouldn't expect it. Lila's amusement faded. Expect what? Me to get married? Silence. Lila stared at him, then laughed once. He didn't. Her laugh disappeared. Oh. Damien was serious. Very. She pointed toward herself again. You? Yes? Married? Yes? To me? If you agree. Lila blinked, then looked around the library. Perhaps there was another woman hiding behind a bookshelf. At this point, she refused to rule anything out. Damien continued. It wouldn't be real. That somehow made the conversation both better and much worse. A fake marriage. Engagement first. Obviously. We should maintain standards. His eyes narrowed slightly. Lila began pacing. No. Wait. You don't know me. I know enough. That is the sentence serial killers use before documentaries. Damien ignored that. I know you're observant. Lila stopped. I know you noticed the server using the wrong corridor earlier. Her expression changed. I know you noticed Sebastian's reaction tonight. Silence. I know you remembered Claudia Whitmore, even though she didn't remember you. That wasn't difficult. For you. Damien stepped closer. You notice people when they don't think you're looking. Lila said nothing. More importantly, his voice lowered. They behave differently around you. Something shifted. Now she understood why he had watched the crowd after choosing her. You were testing them. Yes. And Sebastian failed. Possibly. Lila looked toward the library doors. The humor was still there, but underneath it, something had teeth. What does marriage have to do with your cousin? Damien was quiet for a moment. Then he told her. Not everything. Enough. His older brother Adrian had died 18 months earlier. Car accident. Except Damien did not believe it was an accident. Adrian had discovered money disappearing from several legitimate Moretti businesses. Then he died. Afterward, Sebastian gained temporary control over part of the family trust. Millions. Influence. Voting authority. Authority he would lose the moment Damien married. Lila stared at him. Then it clicked. You're not looking for a wife. No. You're setting a deadline. Damien's eyes held hers. Yes. There it was. The dangerous game. Announce a sudden engagement. Move toward a wedding. And make whoever killed Adrian believe time was running out. Then wait. Lila rubbed her forehead. Aunt Gloria sends me to find a husband one time. Damien's mouth twitched. Lila pointed at him. Don't. The twitch disappeared. I'm serious. So am I. I'm supposed to find a dentist, maybe an accountant. At worst, somebody who owns an unreasonable number of golf shirts. She gestured around the library. Not uncover a possible murder conspiracy before midnight. Damien almost smiled again. Lila ignored it, because suddenly, she remembered something. The thought arrived so quickly she stopped moving. Damien noticed. What? Lila looked at him. Adrian's last charity dinner. His expression changed. I worked it. I know. No. She shook her head. I mean, I remember something. Damien went completely still. Lila's mind raced backward. 18 months. A ballroom. Gold tablecloths. Late dessert service. A delayed speech. Adrian Moretti, walking through the side doors. Angry. And another man following him. Lila looked straight at Damien. Sebastian left with your brother. Nothing moved. Not Damien. Not the room. Lila continued more slowly. It was late, after the foundation speech. When? Maybe 10:50. How do you know? We were 11 minutes behind dessert. Of course, that was how she knew. Lila remembered events in schedules. Damien took one step closer. What happened? They went through the east doors. Together. Sebastian followed him. And then, Lila's eyes narrowed as the memory sharpened. Sebastian came back. Damien's jaw tightened. Adrian? No. A beat. He was alone. Silence. A long one. Damien looked away for perhaps half a second. That was the first time Lila saw something genuinely human break through his control. Not anger. Pain. Then it vanished. How long between them leaving and Sebastian returning? 15 minutes. Maybe 20. You told investigators? Lila stared at him. Nobody interviewed me. That landed. Hard. Damien looked at her. Lila shrugged slightly. I was an assistant planner. Not family. Not security. Not important. Just the woman standing in the room. Watching. Damien had spent 18 months hunting for answers, and apparently one had been standing behind a seating chart the entire time. Lila looked toward the door, then at him. Well, Damien waited. I suppose that makes this slightly more difficult to walk away from. His gaze sharpened. You can still walk away. That surprised her. No consequences. He continued calmly. No effect on your job. No pressure. I'll tell everyone outside I misunderstood your interest. Lila studied him. There was something unexpectedly decent in that. He had thrown her into public chaos, but privately, he was giving her an exit. Then her phone began vibrating again. Once, twice, 3 times. Lila looked down. Aunt Gloria. She opened the newest message. I have called your mother. Lila's eyes widened. Another arrived. She says don't panic. Then, I say panic productively. Then, is he Catholic? Lila stared at the screen. Damien waited. She slowly looked up. You said I can walk away? Yes. Lila glanced at the messages, then toward the door, then remembered Sebastian's face. Fear. Adrian walking out of that old ballroom, Sebastian returning alone, and Damien watching her as though he genuinely wanted her answer, not obedience. Lila exhaled. I'll help you. Damien didn't react immediately, but there it was. His eyes narrowed. Lila held up a finger. I am not agreeing to marry you tonight. I didn't ask you to. You pointed at me across a garden. Your communication style is unpredictable. Damien accepted that. Barely. I'll pretend you chose me. For now. For now. And tomorrow, Lila considered. Tomorrow you explain everything. Agreed. And I still run this event. Yes. No disappearing in the middle of dinner because Mafia business suddenly becomes dramatic. His expression changed. I can't guarantee that. Then, schedule your criminal emergencies around dessert. Damien stared at her. Lila stared back. A second passed. 2. Then, he laughed. Not much. One low, surprised sound. Gone almost immediately. Lila's eyebrows rose. Well, that was interesting. Before she could comment, somebody knocked. Damien opened the door. Luca stood outside. For once, he wasn't smiling. Sebastian just left the estate. Damien's expression hardened instantly. Lila felt the atmosphere change. Why? Luca looked toward her. Then Damien. He received a call. From? We don't know. A pause. But he left less than 4 minutes after you chose her. Silence. Lila looked at Damien. Damien looked at her. There it was. Proof of nothing. And yet, far too interesting to ignore. Luca glanced between them. So, Damien's eyes stayed on Lila. Lila sighed, then handed Luca her half-eaten cheesecake. He looked down at it, then at her. What am I supposed to do with this? Hold it. Why? Because apparently I'm getting engaged. Luca's face went blank. Damien actually closed his eyes. Just briefly. Lila walked past both men, then stopped in the doorway, turned. And somebody needs to tell my aunt before she orders a cathedral. She left. Luca remained frozen with cheesecake in his hand. Damien stared after her, and for the first time since Adrian Moretti died. Something had happened that Damien had not planned. He had chosen Lila Bennett because she was useful, because people underestimated her, because Sebastian wouldn't expect her, because a woman everyone treated like background might notice what powerful men missed. That was the plan. Simple, calculated, temporary. What Damien did not know was that Lila Bennett was about to turn his 5-week investigation into the most entertaining disaster of his life, because by tomorrow morning, half the city would believe she was the future Mrs. Moretti. Her aunt would be planning a wedding that didn't exist. Women who had ignored her would suddenly want to become her best friend. Men who had dismissed her would begin trying to impress her. And every person who came close would give Lila another chance to watch. Another clue, another lie, another secret. Somewhere inside the Moretti family, a murderer was about to panic. But that wasn't the only problem, because Damien Moretti had just selected a beautiful plus-size event planner to pretend she belonged at his side, and neither of them yet understood how dangerously convincing they were going to become. The game had officially begun. By 8:30 the following morning, Lila Bennett had learned 3 important things. First, the internet could turn 2 seconds of eye contact into an engagement announcement before breakfast. Second, wealthy people apparently woke very early when gossip was involved. And third, Aunt Gloria had absolutely no respect for the concept of reasonable visiting hours. Lila discovered the third one when somebody began pounding on the door of her hotel suite at 8:32. Not knocking, pounding. Lila opened one eye. The pounding continued. She buried her face beneath the pillow. Maybe if she remained still, whoever was outside would assume she had died. Unfortunately, Aunt Gloria had always considered death a poor excuse for avoiding family. Lila Bennett. There it was. Lila groaned. She had returned to her room after 2 in the morning. Damien's charity weekend technically continued for another 3 days. She still had vendor meetings, breakfast service, a luncheon, 2 cocktail receptions, 1 charity auction, and apparently a fake relationship with a suspected Mafia boss that she had somehow agreed to before midnight. Her life had become structurally unsound. "Lila!" She dragged herself from bed, opened the door, and immediately regretted it. Aunt Gloria stood in the hallway, wearing sunglasses, carrying 2 shopping bags, 1 garment bag, and what appeared to be a binder thick enough to contain national secrets. Lila stared. Gloria removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were shining. "Where is he?" Lila blinked. "Good morning to you too. Where is Damien?" "Hopefully somewhere with stronger security." Gloria pushed past her. Lila closed the door slowly. This was her fault. Somewhere in the sequence of decisions that had led to this morning, she had personally made at least 1 wrong turn. Possibly 12. Gloria dropped the binder on the table. It landed with a thud. Lila looked at it, then at her aunt. "No, you don't even know what it is. I know you." Gloria opened the binder. Sections. Color-coded. Of course. Flowers. Venues. Dresses. Guest lists. Lila stared in horror. "You made this overnight?" "Don't be dramatic. It's 8:30. I started before bed. That makes it worse." Gloria ignored her. She pulled out a photograph of an enormous white cake. Lila held up both hands. "Stop." Gloria stopped. Slowly. Lila took a breath. She could not tell her aunt the truth. That had been one of Damien's very clear requirements. Nobody outside a tiny circle could know the courtship was part of an investigation. The more genuine everyone believed it, the more useful Sebastian's reactions became. Unfortunately, Aunt Gloria believed things with the force of natural weather. Lila tried a different approach. "Nothing has happened." Gloria stared. "You were photographed holding hands with Damien Moretti. That is not legally binding." He put his hand on your waist. "Still not legally binding." He looked at you. Lila frowned. "Men do occasionally do that. Not that man." Gloria had a point, an irritating point. Lila walked toward the coffee machine. "I agreed to spend time with him." Gloria went silent. That was far more frightening than shouting. Lila glanced back. Her aunt was smiling. Slowly. The smile of a woman whose patience had finally been rewarded by the universe. "Oh no." Gloria hugged her. Hard. Lila nearly dropped the coffee capsule. "My baby. I'm 29. My baby. Auntie. I knew it." Lila pulled back. "You knew what?" "That you needed to stop dating men who use podcasts as personalities." Lila opened her mouth, closed it. "Unfortunately, that particular criticism was historically supported," Gloria continued. "I told your mother years ago, Lila does not need a normal man." What an encouraging thing to hear. "She needs someone strong." Lila stared. "Your definition of strong has escalated dramatically since yesterday." Gloria lowered her voice. "Is he really?" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Lila knew what she meant. The Moretti name came with whispers. Damien's legitimate businesses were public. The rest depended on who was speaking and whether anyone nearby had a recording device. Lila poured coffee. He owns the resort. That was not what I asked. Then ask safer questions. Gloria looked briefly impressed, then immediately returned to marriage. By 9:15, Lila had rejected 3 veil options for a wedding that did not exist, confiscated Gloria's binder, hidden the garment bag in the closet, and discovered that somebody had sent an enormous arrangement of white roses to her suite. The card read, "For the woman everyone is suddenly talking about. DM." Lila stared at it. Gloria screamed. Not metaphorically. Actually. Lila closed her eyes. Perfect. Damien was apparently committed to realism. The flowers were beautiful. That annoyed her too. Aunt Gloria began photographing them from 6 angles. Lila checked the clock. She had a 9:30 production meeting. Work. Real work. Wonderful. She could return to schedules, tables, lighting, things that made sense. 5 minutes later, she walked into the resort's conference room and discovered that nothing made sense anymore. The room was already full. Florist, catering director, AV coordinator, security, guest relations, several assistants. Luca Romano sat at the far end of the table. He had a laptop open, a stack of security maps beside him, and the deeply suspicious expression of a man who had been awake for several hours, deciding Lila was going to complicate his life. Lila liked him already, professionally, possibly. Then the conversation stopped. Everybody looked at her. Yesterday morning, Lila had walked into production meetings and nobody stopped talking. Today, the florist stood. Lila stopped. "Why are you standing?" The florist sat back down immediately. "Sorry." Lila stared. "Interesting." The catering director smiled too brightly. "Morning, Lila." He had never called her Lila. Not once. For 6 months, she had been Ms. Bennett. Usually when something had gone wrong. Now she was Lila. How intimate. She sat. The room remained strangely careful. Lila opened her folder. "All right. We have the foundation luncheon at 1. Outdoor cocktails move inside if wind exceeds 20 miles per hour. Please confirm the terrace lighting was reset after last night's service." Silence. She looked up. Did everyone forget how meetings work? The AV coordinator cleared his throat. "No." "Wonderful." She looked toward catering. "Dessert count?" 420. "Good. Dietary alternatives?" "Completed." "Flowers." The florist immediately slid photographs toward her. "I brought 3 additional centerpiece options in case you prefer something more romantic." Lila stared at the photographs, then at him. "For the charity luncheon." He hesitated. "Yes? No." She slid them back. "People are donating to children's hospitals. They don't need roses shaped like emotional commitment." Luca's eyes flicked up from his laptop. The florist withdrew the photographs. Lila continued. For 10 minutes, the meeting almost felt normal. Then the guest relations manager cleared her throat. Mrs. Whitmore requested that Miss Bennett personally approve her table. Lila paused. Of course she had. Claudia Whitmore, hydrangeas, short-term memory loss. Wonderful. Why? She said Miss Bennett understands her preferences. Lila leaned back slowly. Yesterday, Mrs. Whitmore had addressed Lila as though staff were an unfortunate invention. Today, Lila apparently possessed unique insight into Claudia's soul. Luca was watching. Lila could feel it. "Tell Mrs. Whitmore that the table assignment is unchanged." The manager nodded. "And she asked whether you might join her for tea tomorrow." That did it. Lila looked at Luca. He looked back. No smile. Serious man. No assistance there. "Tell her I'm working." The meeting continued. A second request arrived. Then another. A senator's wife suddenly wanted Lila's opinion on a charity board. A hotel investor invited her to dinner. A woman who had complained that Lila's shoes were too practical for the ambiance now wanted the name of her stylist. Lila did not, when tame, have a stylist. She had an online shopping cart and anxiety. By the end of the meeting, she had been invited to 2 private lunches, 1 yacht, a gallery opening, and something called a philanthropic brunch circle that sounded suspiciously like rich people eating eggs while congratulating one another. Lila closed her folder. Well, nobody moved. She looked around. Meeting over. Everybody began leaving, too politely. Lila waited until the room emptied, except Luca. He remained seated, naturally. She gathered her papers. You can say it. Luca looked up. Say what? That this is ridiculous. I was going to say predictable. Lila paused. Oh, he closed the laptop. People want proximity to Damien. I'm aware. Yesterday you were an employee. I remain an employee. To them, Luca glanced toward the door. No, there was no cruelty in it. Just observation. Lila sat again. Interesting. She liked that too. They think I'm access. Yes. And you think they'll use me? Yes. Very optimistic office culture. Luca ignored that. You need to remember why Damien chose you. Lila's eyebrows rose. Do I? You're outside the family. Correct. Outside the organization. Correct. Sebastian doesn't know how much Damien has told you. Neither do I, technically. Luca considered that. Fair. Then he pushed one of the security maps toward her. Lila looked down. It was the garden layout. Exits. Cameras. Routes. Guard placements. Her professional brain immediately spotted 3 things she disliked. She tapped one corridor. This blocks banquet service. Luca stared. We're discussing security, and I'm discussing 400 plates of food. Security takes priority. Not when your guard forces servers through the ballroom while guests are seated. They can use the North Corridor. The North Corridor is carpeted. So 40 servers carrying hot plates down thick carpet in evening shoes is how you create an orthopedic emergency. Luca looked at her. Lila looked back. There it was, the first professional battle. Luca slid the map toward himself. Security stays. Lila took it back. Move 2 men 6 feet. They need line of sight. They will still have line of sight. No. Yes. No. Lila pulled out a pencil. Moved 2 marks. There. Luca stared. She tapped the drawing. They can see both entrances. Service can pass behind them. Nobody walks through soup. Silence. He studied it. Longer. Then, I'll consider it. Lila smiled. That means I'm right. It means I'll consider it. Excellent. We're communicating. She stood. Luca watched her collect her papers, then said quietly. Lila stopped. About, you notice what moves. That wiped away some of her amusement. Only some. She looked at him. Careful. One compliment, and people may think we're friends. We're not. Good. I have enough problems. She left. At noon, her newest problem walked into the ballroom. Damien Moretti. And Lila immediately understood why half the city had lost its mind. He had dressed less formally today, which meant black trousers, white shirt, dark jacket. Apparently rebellion existed. He moved through the room with the same quiet authority as the night before. Workers glanced up. Managers straightened. Lila did not. She was standing on a small riser, arguing with the lighting team about an overhead spotlight that made table 18 look like an interrogation room. Damien stopped nearby, waited. Lila noticed him, after perhaps 30 seconds. You're early. For what? She frowned. I don't know. Whatever mysterious thing Mafia bosses do at noon. One of the lighting technicians suddenly became extremely interested in a cable. Damien's eyes moved toward him. Lila followed. Don't frighten the crew. I didn't say anything. Exactly. Damien looked back at her. She stepped down from the riser. Why are you here? To have lunch with you. Lila blinked. What? You agreed to play along. Yes. This is playing along. You scheduled nothing. I sent flowers. That is not a calendar invitation. Damien's gaze flicked toward the folder in her hand. Everything requires scheduling with you? Only things that occupy time. Lunch occupies time. Correct. So schedule it. She stared. This man, this terrifying man, had just instructed an event planner to schedule his spontaneous courtship. Something about that was absurd enough to be delightful. She looked at her watch. I have 27 minutes. That specific? 28. Disappeared while you were being difficult. Damien almost smiled. Not quite. But Lila was beginning to recognize when he wanted to. They walked through the resort's private courtyard, and Lila prepared herself for awkwardness. It never arrived. That was problem number 1. Damien pulled out her chair. Not dramatically. Naturally. He asked whether she preferred sparkling or still water, because he'd noticed the night before she refused champagne while working. He remembered she had mentioned not eating shellfish because of an allergy. When the waiter offered a dessert menu, Damien ordered raspberry cheesecake without asking. Lila stared. He looked at her. What? You've become alarmingly efficient. At lunch? At pretending? Damien's expression changed slightly. Ah, there. The subject. He leaned back. We need people to believe this. I understand. So I paid attention. That should have been reassuring. It was not. Lila looked down at her glass. This is your professional skill? Yes. Making women think you're romantically interested? No. Convincing people of things? Much better. Slightly. Their lunch lasted 27 minutes. Exactly. And in those 27 minutes, Damien said surprisingly little about the investigation. Instead, he asked about her work, how she'd started, why events, which part she liked. Lila told him the truth. She liked the moment before a ballroom opened. The room completely ready. Candles lit. Tables perfect. Music waiting. Everything held in suspension for perhaps 30 seconds before people entered and began ruining it. Damien actually laughed at that, briefly. Lila noticed, but she did not mention it. Different story, different rhythm. She simply enjoyed winning. Then Damien asked, "Why did your aunt send you to find a husband?" Lila groaned. "Because she believes my profession gives me unfair access to wealthy men, and I have somehow failed to exploit the opportunity." Damien considered this. "Have you? Have I what?" "Failed." She stared. That sounded dangerously like flirting. It was a question. It was wearing a question's coat. Damien's eyes warmed, and again, Lila found herself annoyed by how natural this felt. This was supposed to be strategy. Instead, she was enjoying lunch. That was dangerous. Thankfully, the investigation returned before she could examine the problem. Damien placed a photograph on the table. "Sebastian, you told him a story last night." Lila froze. "What story?" "That I noticed you, after you rescued a peacock from the fountain." She looked at him. "Ah, there is no peacock." I panicked. "You invented wildlife." He asked how we met. "You could have said last night." "That's not romantic. We're pretending." "Exactly." Damien stared. Lila became defensive. "It needed texture." "Texture?" "Yes. There is now a rumor circulating that I own peacocks." She bit the inside of her cheek. Damien continued. "My house manager received a call this morning, asking whether they are available for photographs." Lila looked down, shoulders shaking. Damien watched. Finally, she laughed. Hard. Not elegant. Not quiet. Actual laughter. The waiter glanced over. Lila covered her mouth. "Oh no." Damien remained perfectly serious. "That made it worse. He called your house." "Yes." "For the peacocks." "Yes." "There are none." "I know." Lila wiped one eye. "I'll fix it." "How?" she thought. "Tell people they are private." Damien stared at her. Lila began laughing again. And that was the first time Damien Moretti realized Lila did not need to make him ridiculous for a situation to become funny. Sometimes, all she needed was one badly chosen lie and the rich people's commitment to believing nonsense. By that afternoon, the non-existent Moretti peacocks had become social fact. One guest claimed to have seen them years ago. Another remembered they were beautiful. Lila discovered someone had posted an old photograph of a random peacock at a completely different estate and tagged the Moretti resort. She showed Damien. He looked at the screen, then her. "This is your fault." "Yes. Fix it." "No." His eyebrows rose. "Why?" "Because Sebastian believes the story." Damien stopped. Lila's humor faded into intrigue. She turned the phone around. Sebastian had commented publicly beneath the photograph. Always knew Damien was secretly sentimental. Lila tapped it. "He's accepting our fake history." "Meaning?" "If he was already suspicious that last night was planned, he'd challenge inconsistencies." Damien looked at her. "He's choosing to believe the romantic explanation. Or pretending to." "Exactly." The ridiculous peacock had become evidence. Lila smiled slowly. "I've accidentally weaponized poultry." "Peacocks are not poultry." She stared. "You know that?" Damien walked away. Lila followed. "Do you secretly have bird knowledge?" "No." "You sounded confident." "Lila, I'm simply trying to understand the man I'm apparently courting." Damien kept walking. But she caught it. That quiet warmth again. And somewhere under the laughter, the game moved forward. That night, Lila pulled the archived files from Adrian Moretti's last Foundation event. Old schedules, vendor lists, security notes, transportation timings, room allocations, thousands of ordinary details. Nothing dramatic, which was exactly why she trusted them. People lied. Paperwork usually lied only when someone had deliberately altered it. At 1:17 in the morning, Lila found the first alteration. Adrian's car had originally been scheduled for the front entrance at 11:35 p.m. At 11:17, the pickup location changed. Rear service drive, authorization code, event operations. Lila stared. Her department had issued the code, except she knew the initials beside it. They belonged to a supervisor who had been off duty. Lila reached for her phone, stopped, looked at the time. 1:18 a.m. She considered Damien, then dialed. He answered on the second ring. No sleep in his voice. "Of course not." "Lila?" She stared at the document. "Your brother's car didn't leave from where it was supposed to." Silence. Then Damien's voice changed. "How do you know?" "Because someone changed the event schedule 18 minutes before he left." A pause. "And Damien?" "Yes?" "The authorization came from my department." The humor disappeared. Just for a moment. Because somewhere beneath the romance, beneath the ridiculous peacock, beneath the sudden social obsession with Lila Bennett, someone had used an event to move Adrian Moretti exactly where they wanted him. And Lila had just found the first real thread. By the third day, Lila developed a professional concern. Damien Moretti was too good at pretending to like her. This was not arrogance. It was data. She had expected stiffness. Awkward photographs, forced hand-holding, perhaps one painful public dinner where both of them looked like unwilling participants in a hostage exchange. Instead, Damien behaved like he'd been secretly studying romance, while everyone else assumed he was running organized crime. The problem began at breakfast. Lila arrived 10 minutes late because a florist had attempted to replace white garden roses with cream roses and insisted nobody would notice. Lila noticed. Obviously. She entered the private dining terrace, slightly irritated, and found Damien already there. He stood as she approached. She stopped. "What are you doing?" "Standing. I can see that." He waited. Lila looked at the chair. Then him. "Oh." He pulled it out. She sat, annoyed, because it was smooth. No performance. No exaggerated gentleman routine. Just consideration. Then the server placed coffee in front of her. Exactly how she drank it. Strong. Little milk. No sugar. Lila stared at the cup. Then Damien. "You asked." "Yes." "When?" "Yesterday." "You remember?" "Yes." "Dangerous." She took a cautious sip. Perfect. Even more dangerous. A plate arrived. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit. No mushrooms. Lila looked again. I don't like mushrooms. I know. I never told you that. You moved them to the edge of your plate yesterday. Lila set down her fork. All right. Damien glanced up. What? This is becoming suspicious. What is? You. He waited. Lila leaned forward. You are much too competent at fake romance. Damien looked genuinely confused by the accusation. You prefer incompetence? I was prepared for incompetence. Why? She gestured at him. Because you look like this. What does that mean? It means nobody sees you and thinks, emotionally intuitive brunch companion. Damien's mouth moved. Not a smile. The possibility. He continued eating. Lila narrowed her eyes. Have you done this before? No. Fake engagement? No. Real engagement? No. Secret long-term girlfriend nobody knows about? No. Intensive romantic training? Damien looked at her. Is that a real thing? I sincerely hope not. He went back to breakfast. Lila watched him. Damien finally said, You told me this has to be convincing. Yes. So I'm making it convincing. There. Logical. Cold. Strategic. Excellent. Lila relaxed. Then Damien reached across, removed a tiny piece of thread from her sleeve, and continued his sentence, as though nothing had happened. Lila stopped relaxing. This man was a menace. The official engagement announcement happened that afternoon. Not marriage. Not yet. But enough. Damien Moretti and Lila Bennett were formally courting with serious intentions. The language had been crafted by Moretti Public Relations. Aunt Gloria called it cowardly. She wanted the word marriage somewhere. Lila reminded her she was not involved in the press department. Gloria said this was exactly the kind of poor delegation that destroyed families. By evening, photographs of Lila and Damien were everywhere. The most popular image was not glamorous. It showed Lila walking quickly through the resort lobby while reading a production schedule, and Damien beside her, holding the coffee she had forgotten on a table. Nobody knew he'd picked it up because she had nearly abandoned it beside a floral delivery. The internet decided the gesture meant devotion. A headline appeared. The cold Moretti softens for mystery event planner Lila showed him. Damien read it, then handed the phone back. No, she laughed. Excellent response. I didn't soften. You carried my coffee. You forgot it. Romance. Basic object retrieval. Tell the internet. The internet did not care. Neither did Aunt Gloria. By the fourth day, she had started a private family group chat called Operation Wedding. Lila left. Gloria added her back. Lila muted it. Her mother called. Lila considered changing countries. Meanwhile, the investigation deepened. The altered transportation schedule from Adrian's final gala had not been random. Lila traced the authorization. The code belonged to event supervisor Marissa Cole. Marissa had been homesick, but somebody had logged into the system using her credentials from a hospitality office on the resort's second floor. Damien's investigators had checked security records after Adrian died. The camera outside that office had gone offline for 22 minutes, exactly during the change. Too neat, too prepared. Damien assumed Sebastian. Lila wasn't ready. He's obvious. They were sitting in Damien's private office late at night. Lila had covered one side of the table with old event paperwork. Damien's side remained immaculately organized. Her side looked like a paper storm. That doesn't mean innocent, he said. No. But look. She moved 3 documents. Sebastian had attended the gala. He had access. He had motive. He had argued with Adrian. He had disappeared with Adrian before the car left. Everything pointed toward him, which bothered Lila. Why? Damien looked at her. Because real events are messier. He waited. Someone planned this beautifully. She tapped the documents. Login credentials stolen. Camera disabled. Vehicle rerouted. Staff manager told the valet he was mistaken. Every mistake corrected before anybody noticed. Sebastian is capable. Probably. She sat back. But Sebastian is also the kind of man who ordered a live jazz quartet for his birthday last year and forgot to tell the venue. Damien stared. Lila shrugged. I planned it. That actually made him pause. You think he's too disorganized to commit murder? No, she pointed. I think whoever did this understands hospitality systems. That mattered. Damien leaned closer. Lila could smell his cologne. Clean. Dark. Distracting. She shifted 1 inch away. Professional. He noticed. Said nothing. Good. Who had that access? More people than you think. Board members. Foundation directors. Senior resort management. Family executives. Long-term advisors. Damien's uncle Matteo. Sebastian. Several others. The mystery widened. Which was good for suspense, bad for sleep. Excellent for Lila's increasingly questionable attraction to a man who kept appearing beside her at midnight with coffee. And then, the engagement dinner arrived. Official, public, elegant, Moretti family, business partners, close associates, Aunt Gloria, which meant Damien was entering the most dangerous room of the week. Lila tried to warn him. He thought she meant Matteo. She did not. Aunt Gloria arrived, carrying a gift bag. She hugged Damien before anybody could intercept her. Damien's arms remained briefly at his sides. Then, to Lila's surprise, he hugged Gloria back. Properly. Lila watched. That was not in the plan. Gloria pulled away. You're too thin. Damien Moretti, 6 foot something, built like security architecture, looked down at himself. Lila turned away, because she could not survive the expression. Gloria continued. Do you eat? Yes? What? Damien actually answered. Lila stared at him. This was the same man whose employees reportedly became nervous when he asked to have a word. Now Aunt Gloria had him discussing vegetables. Luca stood nearby, expression perfectly neutral. Lila walked beside him. You're enjoying this? No. You are. No. Your left eyebrow moved. Luca looked at her. You're becoming irritating. That's friendship beginning. It isn't. Give it time. Dinner started. Aunt Gloria sat beside Matteo Moretti. Lila met Damien's uncle properly for the first time. Matteo was perhaps 60, silver at his temples, warm smile. Elegant without Damien's severity. He welcomed Lila as though she were already family. Not too much, not suspiciously, just enough. He asked about her work, actually listened, remembered details. Lila liked him, which immediately made her suspicious of herself. She was currently hunting a murderer. Everyone nice had become administratively inconvenient. Sebastian arrived late. He apologized, kissed Gloria's hand. Gloria liked him immediately. Also inconvenient. Throughout dinner, Damien performed beautifully. Again, his hand touched Lila's chair when he passed. He leaned toward her when she spoke. He noticed when she wanted water, before she reached for it. At one point, Gloria launched into a story about Lila, at age 9, attempting to organize a neighborhood wedding between 2 dogs. Lila froze. Damien listened with dangerous interest. No, Gloria continued. A white poodle and a brown spaniel. Aunt Gloria. She made invitations. Damien looked at Lila. Did she? Lila glared. Children are stupid, Gloria continued. She charged attendance. Damien's eyebrows rose. Lila defended herself. The event had expenses. Luca actually choked on water. Matteo laughed. Sebastian laughed. Damien leaned closer. How old were you? 9. And profitable? Barely. For the first time that evening, the whole table felt normal. Funny. Warm. No murder. No suspicion. Just Lila regretting childhood entrepreneurship. And Thurston. That was when Damien did something dangerous. He looked at her. Not because cameras were nearby. Not because Sebastian was watching. Not because the performance required it. He simply looked, softly, a private smile in his eyes. Lila felt it. So did something inconvenient inside her chest. She looked away, immediately. Then, the dinner moved to dessert. Wedding cake samples appeared. Lila stopped, looked at Gloria. Gloria looked innocent. Nobody believed her. "Auntie, we were already tasting cakes for the resort showcase." "No, we weren't." "Well, now we are. 5 cakes. Vanilla, chocolate, lemon, pistachio, something involving lavender that Lila distrusted on principle." Damien was forced to taste all 5. Gloria watched his reactions as though evaluating a witness. Lila sat beside him. "This is what you get." 4, pointing at me. Damien took another bite of lemon cake. "I've faced worse." Gloria pushed lavender toward him. Damien examined it. Lila whispered, "Take that back." He glanced at her. "What?" "The statement." Damien tasted lavender. His expression did not change. That somehow made it funnier. Gloria asked. "Well?" asked. Damien swallowed. Distinctive. Lila lowered her head. "Coward." He leaned closer. "You try it." "No. We're supposed to be together." "Not in suffering." He cut a small piece, held the fork toward her. Lila stared. Around them, conversation continued. Nobody was paying much attention. This wasn't for show. "Damien, try it." She did. Immediately regretted it. Her face changed. Damien saw, and laughed, quietly. Lila slapped his arm under the table. He looked delighted. For perhaps 2 seconds. Then Matteo Moretti dropped his fork. A tiny thing, metal against porcelain. Lila's attention shifted. Matteo was looking at one of the printed wedding timeline mock-ups Gloria had brought. Specifically, the date. 5 weeks away. His expression disappeared. Gone almost instantly. Warm again. But Lila had seen it. Another change. Another schedule ruined. Her eyes moved toward Damien. He had noticed her attention. Not Matteo's reaction. Her. Lila subtly touched the edge of the timeline. Damien followed. Matteo smiled. Asked Gloria about flowers. Perfectly normal. Too normal. Lila didn't know yet. But for the first time, Sebastian wasn't the only Moretti who had reacted strangely to the wedding date. And Lila Bennett, event planner, fake fiancé, accidental dog wedding entrepreneur, had just found a second suspect. A week into the fake courtship, Damien and Lila developed a problem. They were having fun. This was not part of the strategy. The strategy required credibility, public affection, shared appearances, convincing photographs. What it did not require was Lila laughing in Damien's office at midnight while he attempted to understand why one ballroom diagram had 14 different colored arrows. They represent staff movement. There are too many. There are 400 guests. You don't need 14 colors. I do. Why? Because I enjoy watching you suffer. Damien looked up. Lila grinned. He went back to the diagram. Their investigation had migrated from formal meetings into something stranger. Late dinners, coffee, old invoices, vendor calls, archive boxes. Lila bringing snacks because Damien forgot meals. Damien sending a driver because Lola once fell asleep at her desk and woke at 3 a.m. She objected to the driver, then discovered the car had heated seats. Her principles weakened slightly. Their public appearances became increasingly convincing because, privately, they were beginning to like each other. That was inconvenient. One evening, they attended a foundation ball at another Moretti property. Hundreds of guests. Perfect opportunity to watch suspects. Damien and Lila danced, because pretending not to dance would attract attention. Lila had expected formal stiffness. Again, wrong. Damien danced beautifully. Of course. The man apparently had a secret resume. She looked up. You dance? Yes. Why? His eyebrows rose. Why? You don't seem like someone who dances. You've said similar things about breakfast, and smiling, and handkerchiefs. Personal growth. Damien's hand remained at her waist. They moved slowly through the crowded floor. Lila was supposed to watch Matteo. Instead, she kept noticing Damien. Not ideal, she corrected herself. Your uncle left the ballroom. Damien's eyes stayed on her. When? 30 seconds ago. Direction? North Hall. Sebastian? Still at the bar. Damien turned them slightly. From the new angle, Lila could see both. Effortless. Very clever. Guests nearby smiled. To them, Damien was simply drawing his fiancée closer. Lila whispered, "Stop making surveillance look romantic. I moved you 3 feet. You weaponized the 3 feet." Damien's mouth twitched. She kept watching. Matteo returned 4 minutes later. No visible reason for leaving. Lila filed it away. Damien leaned closer. "What?" "Nothing. You made the face." "What face?" "The one you make when something doesn't fit." Lila stared. He had learned her face. That was intimate. Too intimate. She changed subjects. Sebastian speaking to the Foundation treasurer. Damien looked past her shoulder, and the investigation resumed. Over the next several days, Lila began to realize the most useful part of pretending to be Damien's chosen woman was not access. It was confidence. People told her things, constantly, not because she asked suspicious questions, because they wanted to impress her. A donor complained that Matteo personally approved every large foundation invoice. A hotel manager casually mentioned that Sebastian rarely handled operational details. A former assistant remembered Matteo changing room assignments himself because he liked things done properly. Interesting. Very interesting. Then Lila found the pattern. 3 Moretti events. 3 strange hospitality changes. 2 years. At the first, a visiting executive's room had been switched after check-in. Confidential documents disappeared. At the second, a political donor had been moved to a private dining room with someone he later claimed never to have met. Photographs eventually became blackmail material. At the third, Adrian's vehicle route changed. Different outcomes, same method, hospitality access. Move people, move rooms, move schedules, create privacy, control who sees what. Lila spread the records across Damien's office floor. He entered, stopped, looked down. "Why are my files on the floor?" "Because your table is too small. My table seats 12. "Exactly." He stared. Lila waved him over. "Come here." Damien actually obeyed. That had become another tiny development nobody discussed. She pointed. "Look at these events." He crouched beside her. 3 dates, 3 properties, 3 operational changes. "You see it?" Damien studied. Matteo attended all 3. So did Sebastian. Yes. But Sebastian had no system access. He could have instructed someone. Possibly. Lila moved another sheet. Matteo chaired the Hospitality Foundation. Damien went quiet. She saw his resistance immediately. Not anger. Emotion. Matteo had helped raise him. He did not want this line of inquiry. Lila softened. "I am not saying he's guilty." Damien nodded. She continued. "But somebody has been using events the way other people use dark alleys." That caught him. "Explain." "Events create chaos." Lila sat back against the sofa. Hundreds of people. Temporary staff. Last-minute changes. Guests moving constantly. Someone changes a room. Nobody questions it because they assume the planner did it. Someone moves a car. Nobody questions it because transportation is always changing. Someone enters a service corridor. Everyone assumes they belong there. Damien understood. Cover. Perfect cover. She looked around at the files. And whoever did this knows exactly how hospitality works. Silence. Then Damien said, "You're good at this." Simple. No flirting. No performance. It hit harder than she expected. Lila looked at him. "So are you." He considered. "At murder investigations?" "At listening when I disagree with you." Damien's expression changed slightly. "Most people don't." "No." "Why?" They think disagreeing with me is dangerous. Lila smiled. That's because you look like consequences. Damien actually laughed, and the room relaxed. For perhaps 5 minutes. They stopped working. They ate cold pasta from takeout containers. Lila told him about a wedding where a bride discovered the groom's second phone 30 minutes before the ceremony. Damien asked what she did. Lila said she moved the speeches earlier because lawyers had arrived. He stared. She shrugged. Event planning. He told her about Luca accidentally locking himself in a wine cellar at 19. Lila nearly fell sideways laughing. Damien immediately regretted sharing. She demanded details. He refused. She threatened to ask Luca. Damien said Luca would deny everything. Lila promised to bring wine. The conversation drifted. Family, work, childhood. Nothing important, which made it more important. At some point, Lila realized she had stopped seeing Damien as a mafia boss. Not entirely. One did not forget shoulders like those arrived with reputational consequences. But she saw the man beneath it now. Disciplined, funny in tiny doses, deeply loyal, still grieving, surprisingly patient. And Damien, whether he admitted it or not, had stopped seeing Lila merely as the woman nobody watched. He watched her constantly. Not surveillance. Attention. There was a difference. The first almost kiss happened 3 nights later. It wasn't planned. It wasn't public. And nobody was trying to make Sebastian jealous. They were standing inside an empty ballroom at 1 in the morning. Lila had been checking the rehearsal layout. Damien had come to bring her the archive files she'd requested. Music from a staff soundcheck played softly through the speakers. Lila stood in the center of the empty dance floor. Damien approached. "You're still working. So are you. I was looking for you." That sounded romantic. It wasn't intended romantically. "Work on delivery." He handed her the file. She took it. Neither moved. The ballroom was enormous without guests. Lights low, tables half finished, flowers not yet placed. That quiet moment Lila loved, before an event became an event. Damien looked around. "This is your favorite part." She glanced at him. "You remembered." Yes. There it was again, that irritating competence. Lila smiled. 30 seconds before people ruin it. Damien looked at her. "Dance with me." She froze. "There is nobody here." "I know." "Then why?" He held out his hand. No reason. That was the problem. No audience. No suspect. No cameras. No reason. Lila took his hand, because apparently intelligence had limitations. They moved slowly across the empty ballroom. No performance. No whispers. No investigation. Damien's hand rested against her waist, Lila's palm against his shoulder. He looked at her. She looked back. And for the first time, the silence between them felt less like caution and more like anticipation. Damien lowered his head slightly. Lila didn't move. 1 second. 2. Then, a microphone screamed through the speakers. Both jumped. An unseen technician cursed from somewhere backstage. Lila burst out laughing. Damien closed his eyes. The moment was dead. Completely. Murdered by audio feedback. Lila leaned against him, laughing. "I am sorry. You aren't." "No." Damien looked toward the ceiling. The technician shouted another apology. Lila laughed harder, and somehow, the interruption made the unfinished kiss more intimate rather than less, because now they both knew something was there. They simply had not decided what to do about it. The next morning, Lila weaponized the wedding planning, not romance, information. She prepared different versions of harmless details. 3 potential rehearsal locations, 3 ceremony times, 3 florist names. Each version went to a different Moretti relative. If one leaked, she would know where it came from. Damien studied her plan. "You've done this before?" "No. That is concerning." "Thank you. Within 48 hours." One fake rehearsal location appeared in a society blog. The location had been told to Matteo Moretti. Lila stared at the screen. Damien stood beside her. Neither spoke. For the first time, the dangerous game shifted completely. Sebastian might still know something, but Matteo, the warm uncle, the family peacemaker, the man who had laughed at Aunt Gloria's dog wedding story, had just leaked information nobody else possessed. And somewhere beneath Lila's growing feelings for Damien, a far less entertaining realization took shape. They had been looking in the wrong direction. The next problem arrived inside a flower arrangement. Naturally, Lila had spent years insisting flowers caused more trouble than people believed. Nobody respected that wisdom until one of them contained a listening device. The arrangement arrived at Damien's estate 2 days after the leaked rehearsal location. White orchids, silver branches, crystal vase, expensive, elegant, hideous. Lila stopped walking the moment she saw it in the foyer. Damien was speaking to Luca nearby. She held up one hand. Who approved that? Both men looked toward the arrangement. Luca frowned. It was delivered this morning. By whom? Sebastian. Lila approached, circled it. Damien watched. What? The proportions are wrong. Luca stared. Damien looked between them. The proportions. Yes. You think Sebastian is involved because you dislike the flowers? No. She bent. The florist who designed this is too expensive to make that mistake. Luca crossed his arms. What mistake? Lila pointed. The branches are weighted strangely. They're leaning left. Maybe they're branches. She gave Luca a look. I don't question your men based on posture. Don't question me based on orchids. Damien's mouth twitched. Lila carefully removed one stem. Then another. Nothing. Luca looked vindicated. She removed the silver branch. A tiny electronic device dropped against the glass. Silence. Luca looked at it. Then Lila. Lila folded her arms. Apologized to the orchids. He ignored her. Damien picked up the device using a handkerchief. A listening transmitter. Professional. Small. Hidden beautifully. Lila looked at the arrangement. I still hate it. Luca actually smiled. Very small. Lila saw. Was that respect? No. Friendship? Absolutely not. Progress. The device seemed to point toward Sebastian. After all, the arrangement carried his name, except Lila no longer trusted obvious evidence. Neither did Damien. They had learned. The florist was contacted quietly. The order had been placed online, paid through a prepaid card. The sender name was Sebastian Moretti. Too easy. Somebody wanted them looking at him. Again. Lila's suspicion moved firmly toward Matteo, but Damien needed more. Emotion demanded more, and Lila understood. So she did what she understood best. She created an event. A pretend event inside the real wedding preparations. 3 vendors received slightly different security information. 2 family members received fake logistical complaints. Matteo received a harmless concern that one private service corridor would be closed on the wedding day. Sebastian received a different corridor. Luca received the actual plan. Then they waited. The results were hilarious. Because wealthy people, Lila discovered, were terrible spies. One woman attempted to casually ask whether security cameras covered the conservatory while pretending to discuss orchids. Lila let her continue for 11 minutes. Another businessman tried to photograph a seating chart, but had his phone camera facing the wrong way. He took 6 photographs of his own forehead. Lila discovered them later because he accidentally emailed one to the event office. Luca refused to believe anyone could be that incompetent. Lila printed the photograph and taped it inside his security folder. He removed it. She printed another. Their professional rivalry had become deeply childish. Damien stayed out of it, mostly, until Luca submitted an updated guest flow map titled Security Version. Final. Lila returned it with a sticky note. Final according to whom? Luca responded, the person responsible for keeping everyone alive. Lila wrote, The person responsible for keeping everyone from trampling each other disagrees. Damien found the paperwork, read both, then quietly approved Lila's version. Luca did not speak to him for 3 hours. Lila was delighted. Their fake engagement continued getting more romantic, which was becoming a real administrative issue. Damien attended a bridal tasting with her, not because Aunt Gloria demanded it, because he wanted to. Lila asked why. He said he needed to understand the event. She didn't believe him. Still, he came, and once again, Damien surprised her by not treating ordinary things as beneath him. He listened to the baker, asked intelligent questions, remembered Gloria preferred vanilla, took notes when Lila mentioned one guest had a severe nut allergy. At some point, Lila caught herself staring. Damien noticed. What? Nothing. You're doing it again. Doing what? Looking at me like something doesn't fit. Lila smiled. You remember that too? Yes. She looked at the cake samples, then him. I thought you'd be bad at this. Wedding cake. Normal life. He went quiet. That answer had slipped out more honestly than she intended. Lila continued. You're Damien Moretti. I know. People are scared of you. I know. You run many things. Very diplomatic. I try. She looked at him. But you're good with my aunt. She asks direct questions. You like that? Yes. Lila understood. No games. No fear. No performance. Gloria simply wanted to know whether he ate vegetables. Damien found that refreshing. Lila smiled. Then Aunt Gloria entered carrying another folder. Damien's expression changed. Lila burst out laughing. Even powerful men had limits. The romantic turning point came that evening. No danger. No suspects. No strategy. Lila was exhausted. She had spent 12 hours managing vendors. A seamstress had altered the wrong dress. A florist had accidentally ordered 600 ivory roses instead of 400. One guest had requested a private helicopter transfer to an event taking place 19 minutes away by car. Lila returned to Damien's estate and found dinner waiting. Nothing elaborate. Pasta, bread, salad, no staff hovering. Damien sat across from her. He didn't ask about Matteo. He didn't ask about Sebastian. He simply said, eat. Lila was too tired to argue. After 10 minutes, she realized he'd ordered from the small Italian restaurant she'd mentioned liking near her old apartment. Her favorite dish. She looked at him. You're doing it again. What? Being suspiciously thoughtful. Eat. Very romantic response. Lila. She smiled, then ate. They talked. Nothing consequential. She told him about a bride who once changed her entire wedding color palette because a psychic disliked blue. Damien told her about Luca attempting to learn golf for a business meeting and hitting a ball through a restaurant window. Lila nearly dropped her fork. Damien made her promise not to repeat it. She promised nothing. The evening ended on the terrace. Quiet. City lights beyond the trees. Lila leaned against the railing. Damien stood beside her. No cameras, no family, no reason to touch her. He did anyway, just his fingers against hers. Small, deliberate. Lila looked down, then up. Is this part of the performance? No. There. Simple. Her heart behaved terribly. Damien turned toward her. I should tell you something. Lila's humor vanished. He looked unusually uncertain. That alone was enough to scare her. I stopped thinking of you as part of the plan. She swallowed. When? I don't know. That's inconvenient. Yes. Very inconvenient. Lila looked away, then back. I've been having a similar administrative problem. Damien smiled. Not the public one. Not the controlled, almost smile. Real. Lila's chest tightened. Then he kissed her. No cameras. No audience. No 3-second agreement. No strategic reason. Just Damien. Just Lila. Low. Certain. The kind of kiss that made an intelligent woman briefly wonder whether being able to think was actually overrated. Lila's hand moved against his chest. Damien pulled her closer, and for several seconds, the murder investigation ceased to exist. Then, Lila's phone rang. She stopped. Damien did not immediately move away. The phone rang again. Lila glanced down. Vendor. Damien looked at the screen, then at her. If you answer that, she smiled. What? I may become genuinely offended. The phone rang a third time. Lila stared at it, then Damien. This was difficult. He looked appalled. Seriously? She laughed, declined the call. Damien looked satisfied. Then the phone rang again. Lila groaned. It's probably important. It is 9:45. Florists have no respect for time. He stepped back. Answer it. Lila did. 30 seconds later, she looked horrified. What? She covered the phone. They ordered burgundy. Damien stared. For what? The rehearsal dinner. Is that bad? Lila looked at him like he'd asked whether gravity was optional. We selected plum. Damien slowly nodded. Of course. Lila returned to the call. Damien turned toward the city, laughing quietly. And somehow, this was what falling in love with Lila Bennett looked like. Not dramatic declarations, not danger, a ruined kiss, because someone ordered the wrong shade of flowers. Damien liked it. That frightened him more than he expected. Later that night, Luca delivered the result of their information trap. The service corridor Matteo had been told would close had suddenly received a maintenance request, submitted anonymously. Someone wanted it open. Damien looked at Lila. Lila looked at Damien. Their romantic evening ended with both reaching the same conclusion. Matteo wasn't merely leaking information. He was preparing for something, and the wedding, fake or not, was becoming part of his plan. Damien did not want Matteo to be guilty. That was the first problem. The second was that every new piece of evidence appeared increasingly determined to disappoint him. Matteo had access. Matteo controlled the foundation hospitality budget. Matteo had been present at every compromised event. Matteo knew the resort's service systems. Matteo's office had authorized maintenance around camera failures on Adrian's final night. And now, Matteo had reacted to the wedding date, leaked rehearsal information, and attempted to keep a service corridor accessible. Still, Damien resisted, not irrationally, emotionally. Lila understood that better than Luca did. Luca wanted action. Damien wanted proof. Lila wanted Damien not to destroy one of the few family relationships he had left, based on incomplete evidence. So she slowed everyone down, which was ironic. The event planner, normally obsessed with timing, became the person insisting they wait. Then Sebastian arrived at the estate uninvited. Luca immediately wanted him searched. Lila wanted him seated. Damien wanted answers. They compromised. Sebastian entered the library furious, not charming, not smiling. For the first time, Lila saw the man beneath the social performance. He threw an envelope onto Damien's desk. Inside, copies of bank transfers, foundation accounts, shell companies, signatures, Matteo. Damien looked at Sebastian. Sebastian finally admitted what he'd been hiding. Adrian had confronted him that night. Lila's memory was correct, but Adrian wasn't accusing Sebastian of murder. He was accusing him of helping Matteo hide money. Sebastian had helped move funds. At first, he believed the transfers were legal restructuring. Then he realized they weren't. By then, his signature was everywhere. He panicked. Adrian discovered it, threatened to expose Matteo. Sebastian followed Adrian outside and begged him to wait. Not because he wanted Adrian dead, because he was terrified Adrian would destroy the entire family, including Sebastian. Adrian refused. Sebastian returned to the gala. Adrian left, and by morning, Adrian was dead. Damien sat completely still. Lila watched. Sebastian continued. He had spent 18 months keeping quiet, because admitting the truth meant admitting fraud, cowardice, complicity, possibly prison. Damien looked murderous. Lila's hand quietly touched his wrist. Nothing more. He noticed, stayed seated. That mattered. Sebastian looked at Lila. "You're the reason he stopped looking only at me." Lila said nothing. He laughed without humor. Of course. Then he told them the final piece. Matteo had approached him 2 days earlier, asked whether Damien's wedding was real. Not casually, urgently, Sebastian lied. Said yes. Matteo's response? He told Sebastian, "Then we have less time than I thought." Silence. There it was. Not enough for conviction. More than enough for Damien. The case changed completely. Unfortunately, Matteo changed tactics too. He attacked Lila. Not physically, socially, which proved he understood Damien better than they thought. Anonymous stories appeared online. Old photographs. Lila with previous boyfriends. A picture from a corporate event cropped to make it look as though she was embracing a married executive. Another article suggested she deliberately targeted Damien because she knew his family trust required marriage. A third called her a social climber with convenient access. By lunch, reporters surrounded the resort entrance. By 3, 3 major wedding guests had cancelled. By 4, Aunt Gloria was calling journalists personally. Lila had to confiscate her phone. "You cannot threaten reporters." "I did not threaten them. You said one of them should sleep with one eye open. That is advice." "Auntie, he called you calculating." "I am calculating. I literally make schedules." Gloria remained furious. Lila almost laughed. Almost. But the stories hurt. Not because strangers believed them, because they were designed beautifully. They used the truth, her job, her access, her relationship with Damien, twisted, rearranged, exactly like someone manipulating an event. Matteo. Damien found Lila alone in one of the empty conference rooms that evening. She was reading comments. He took her phone. She looked up. "Give it back." "No! Damien, no!" She stared, then leaned back. "Are you about to do the protective Mafia thing?" "Yes. At least you're honest." He sat beside her. Lila looked toward the dark windows. "I knew people would talk. This is different." "Yes." He waited. She sighed. "I hate that Gloria saw it." Damien understood. Strangers were easy. Family hurt differently. He reached for her hand. Lila let him. No dramatic speech, no promises to destroy newspapers, no absurd threats. He simply stayed. That was better. The next morning, Damien made one public statement. Short, controlled. He did not defend Lila as though she were helpless. He did not deny she was ambitious. He did not say she needed saving. He said he had known exactly who Lila Bennett was before approaching her, that her career existed because she was talented, that his interest in her was his decision, not her manipulation, and that anyone attempting to insult her work in order to explain why he chose her underestimated both of them. The statement spread faster than the scandal. Lila watched from her office. Then called him, "You made me sound intimidating." "You are. I plan weddings. You found a murder conspiracy in a transportation spreadsheet." "Fair." She smiled. Then something more important happened. Damien entered her office 20 minutes later, closed the door, looked at her, and said, "I love you." No audience, no music, no setup. Lila stared. Everything inside her went still. Damien looked almost annoyed by his own timing. "I wasn't going to say it now." "Then why are you?" "Because I don't want you wondering whether what I said publicly was strategy." Lila's eyes softened. He continued, "It wasn't." Her throat tightened. "That is very inconvenient." "I know. You keep making my fake engagement administratively complicated." "I know." Lila stood, walked toward him. "You could have waited until after we caught the murderer. I considered it. And I dislike waiting." She smiled. "That is a terrible trait." "I've been told. Lila touched his jacket, then looked up. "I love you too." Damien exhaled, almost imperceptibly, but she felt it. Then Lila added, "Professionally speaking, this is a disaster." He kissed her. That ended the discussion, for approximately 45 seconds. Then Luca knocked. "Of course." Lila pulled away. Damien looked genuinely irritated. Luca entered, paused, saw them, looked at the door, considered leaving, did not. "Should I come back?" "Yes," Damien said. "No," Lila said at the same time. Damien looked at her. She shrugged. "Murder before romance. I disagree with that ordering." Luca stared at both. "I have information." That restored seriousness. Matteo had just authorized a private employee to access Damien's wedding suite, using an outdated maintenance credential. The employee would arrive the morning before the ceremony. Lila's mind moved immediately. The service corridor, the fake maintenance request, the altered access. Matteo wasn't trying to attack the ceremony. He wanted access to Damien's private suite. Why? Evidence, sabotage, a planted weapon, financial documents, something designed to create scandal or criminal liability and force the wedding's cancellation. Lila looked at Damien, then Luca. "No." Luca frowned. "No what?" "We don't stop him." Damien understood first. "We let him enter." "Yes." Luca's expression changed. Lila stood. "If Matteo has spent years using event logistics because he believes nobody watches the staff routes," she smiled slowly, "then let's give him the perfect route." Damien looked at her. The woman he had chosen because nobody saw her was now about to design the trap that would expose the man who had hidden inside Moretti events for years. And for once, the wedding planner was very happy to create a disaster. The morning of the wedding, nothing looked dangerous. That was Lila's favorite part. Flowers arrived at 6, lighting checked at 7, catering loaded at 7:30, security briefing at 8, the orchestra rehearsed at 9. Aunt Gloria began crying at 9:05, despite the ceremony not being real. Technically, Lila had stopped trying to define real. She and Damien loved each other. The wedding was part of an operation. They had not decided whether they would actually sign anything. Aunt Gloria had selected earrings. Reality had become flexible. Lila stood in the ballroom with a headset, clipboard, and the calm expression of a woman managing 300 guests while secretly attempting to expose a murderer. Luca approached. Perimeter secure. Good. Service corridor open. Good. Maintenance employee checked in. Lila's eyes sharpened. When? 2 minutes ago. There. The final act had begun. Matteo's employee moved through the hotel exactly as expected. Badge, uniform, tool case. Nobody stopped him, because Lila had told them not to. He reached Damien's assigned preparation suite, entered, and discovered an empty room. No Damien, no valuables, no private papers, only cameras, hidden. Recording. The man opened his case, removed a gun, documents, several small bags containing narcotics, and one burner phone. The plan became obvious. Plant everything. Create an anonymous tip. Police raid. Scandal erupts. Wedding cancelled. Damien's reputation damaged. Trust transfer delayed. Beautiful. Simple. Until the employee turned, and Luca was standing in the doorway. The man froze. Luca looked at the items on the table. Then him. Poor event planning. Later, Lila would frame that sentence. The employee was detained quietly. No scene. Guests never knew. But Matteo had not appeared. That was wrong. Lila checked the schedule. Matteo was supposed to arrive at 10. 10:15. Nothing. 10:30. Still nothing. Damien approached Lila near the conservatory. You're making the face. What face? The something doesn't fit face. She looked at the entrance. Matteo isn't here. He knows. Maybe. Or he's waiting. For what? Lila thought. The employee's silence. The planted evidence. The service route. Then, she realized, the employee was disposable. If caught, Matteo needed distance. But if not caught, Matteo needed to be nearby when the scandal broke. Yet he was absent. Meaning, something else was happening. Lila grabbed her phone, opened the hotel operations dashboard. Guest arrivals, vehicles, service requests. Then she saw it. A private car had entered the rear estate road 20 minutes earlier, registered to Matteo's assistant. No assistant had checked in. Lila looked at Damien. He's here. Damien's expression hardened. Where? She scanned. Loading dock, garden, staff wing, old foundation office. Then a service door sensor opened. The archive wing, Adrian's records. Lila's eyes widened. He's destroying evidence. They moved. Luca joined. Security followed at distance, but Lila insisted on going because she knew the building. For once, Damien did not argue. He trusted her. That mattered more than protection. They reached the archive wing. Smoke. Not flames yet. Paper burning inside a metal bin. Matteo stood beside the old records cabinet. He turned, saw Damien, then Lila, and for the first time, the warm uncle disappeared. No smile, no patience, only exhaustion. This was unnecessary, Matteo said. Damien stopped. Lila remained slightly behind him. No fear, just alert. Matteo looked at her. You. Lila almost smiled. Apparently, she had achieved villain recognition. You were supposed to be temporary. Damien's voice went cold. She isn't. Matteo laughed bitterly. That is exactly the problem. The confession came slowly. Not because they tortured it out of him. Because Matteo believed too much had already collapsed. Adrian had discovered the fraud. Millions moved through foundation accounts. Hospitality contracts inflated. Private meetings arranged through Moretti hotels. Blackmail. Bribery. Money laundering hidden inside legitimate event expenses. Adrian intended to expose him. Matteo could not allow it. So he altered the transportation schedule, disabled the camera, moved Adrian's car, had someone tamper with the brakes. Sebastian became the perfect distraction because his fingerprints were already on the money transfers. Damien had spent 18 months chasing the nephew Matteo knew looked guilty. It had almost worked, until Lila. Matteo looked at her. The event planner. Lila tilted her head. You say that like it's disappointing. I survived investigators, police, lawyers, Damien. And then you lost to room assignments. Matteo's jaw tightened. A tiny line of humor in the danger. Exactly enough. He looked at Damien. You chose her because she was invisible. Damien's eyes moved briefly to Lila. No, Matteo frowned. I chose her because I noticed her. Lila's heart did something deeply unprofessional, even now. Really? She would address that later. Matteo moved suddenly toward the side door. Security entered. No prolonged fight. No dramatic gunfire. He was stopped within seconds. The archive fire was extinguished. The planted evidence recovered. The employee gave investigators everything within 24 hours. Bank records completed the rest. Adrian Moretti finally got the truth. Sebastian faced consequences for fraud, but not murder. Matteo was arrested, and the dangerous game ended. At 11:47 that morning, Lila stood inside a bridal dressing room, wearing half a wedding dress, and realized they still had a ceremony scheduled in 73 minutes. Aunt Gloria entered, stopped, looked at Lila. Why are there police outside? Lila considered. Administrative issue. Gloria stared. You are lying. Professionally. Gloria narrowed her eyes, then walked closer. Is the wedding happening? There. The question. Lila sat, for the first time all morning. No joke arrived. She loved Damien. She knew he loved her, but they had met inside a lie, courted under surveillance, fallen in love while hunting a killer. They had never simply dated, gone to dinner without watching exits, argued about movies, Spent Sundays doing nothing. Lila wanted that. Not because she doubted him, because she wanted more than the game. Damien entered 10 minutes later. Aunt Gloria left reluctantly. He saw Lila's face. Understood. No anger, no fear, just patience. Lila looked at the dress. I don't think we should get married today. Damien was silent. She rushed to explain. Not because I don't love you. I know. Do you? Yes. That calmed her. She continued. We've never been normal. Damien's expression suggested the concept concerned him. Lila almost smiled. We met because you were setting a trap. Yes. Our first dates involved murder suspects. Yes. Engagement dinner was evidence collection. Yes. Our wedding almost became a felony. That part wasn't planned. Thank you for clarifying. There was the humor again. Soft. Lila stood. I want to date you. Damien stared. You're canceling our wedding because you want to date me. Yes. This is inefficient. Lila laughed. Exactly why you need it. He considered her for several seconds, then nodded. All right. That easy? Lila blinked. All right? You want normal? Yes. We'll do normal. Do you know how? Damien looked mildly offended. I can learn. That was possibly the most romantic thing he'd ever said. They cancelled the ceremony. Publicly, they said family circumstances required postponement. Aunt Gloria took it surprisingly well, for approximately 6 minutes. Then she demanded a future date. Lila fled, and Damien Moretti began dating. Actually dating. It was a disaster. A beautiful disaster. His first attempt at ordinary dinner involved buying out an entire restaurant. Lila arrived. Looked around. Empty. Where is everyone? Privacy. That is not normal. It is for me. We are practicing normal. Damien frowned. Lila made him reopen half the tables. He hated it. She loved it. On their second date, he sent 3 vehicles. Lila took a taxi. Damien stared when she arrived. Where is the driver? At my apartment, wondering where I am. Why? 1 car is normal. I disagree. Exactly. Third date. Private orchestra. No. Why? We're eating pasta. They play well. Damien. The orchestra left. 1 violinist looked disappointed. Lila tipped him. 4th date. Movie theater. Damien rented only 6 seats around them. Progress. 5th date. Lila planned nothing. They stayed home. Cooked. Damien chopped vegetables with alarming precision. Lila accused him of frightening the onions. He said onions had no feelings. She said neither did he until recently. He threw a towel at her. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped the sauce. That was normal. And Damien discovered he loved it. No danger. No strategy, no role to perform. Just Lila stealing food from the pan. Just her leaving shoes in inconvenient places. Just conversations that went nowhere. Just laughter. Peace. Months passed. The murder trial began. Matteo's case strengthened. Adrian's name was cleared of the financial irregularities. Life moved. And one ordinary afternoon, Lila returned to the Moretti Grand Resort to coordinate an anniversary gala. Same garden, same chandeliers, same dessert table, same place where Damien had pointed at her. She was inspecting flowers when someone said behind her, "Those are too beige." Lila froze. Turned. Damien stood there. She stared. He was smiling. Actually smiling. No performance. You've been spending too much time with Claudia Whitmore. No. Lila looked around. No bodyguards. Nearby. Better. She returned to the flowers. Why are you here? To see you. You saw me this morning. Yes? Suspicious. Lila narrowed her eyes. Who are we trapping? Nobody. Is Sebastian in trouble? No. Matteo escape? No. Financial crisis? No. Then this feels irresponsible. Damien laughed, then looked toward the dessert table. Raspberry cheesecake. Of course. He picked up one, walked toward her. Lila looked at the dessert, then him. No. His eyebrows rose. You are not recreating our first meeting with pastry. I am. That is dangerously sentimental. I've been told I secretly own peacocks. Lila laughed. The stupid peacock story had survived. People still believed it. Damien held out the cheesecake. She took it. Then he reached into his jacket. Lila stopped chewing. Her eyes widened. No. Damien went down on one knee. The event staff nearby noticed, then froze. Lila looked around. Oh, absolutely not. Everyone keep working. Nobody worked. Nobody even pretended. Damien looked up at her. Months ago, he had chosen her because she was useful, because nobody watched her, because he needed someone outside his world. Or so he had told himself. Now, he knew better. He had noticed her before the plan fully formed. The woman fixing problems nobody else saw. The woman who refused to be impressed by wealth. The woman who understood rooms, people, timing, and eventually, him. Damien opened the ring box. No gigantic diamond designed to guide aircraft. Lila had taught him something. Elegant, beautiful. Her, he said. I don't need a fiancé. Lila's eyes filled. I don't need an investigator. A few staff members were openly crying now. Traitors. I don't need anyone to help me catch a murderer. He smiled. I need you when absolutely nothing is happening. That did it. Lila laughed through tears, because that was the answer she had wanted, without ever asking. Danger had ended. The game had ended. And he still wanted her. Not because she saved him. Not because she was useful. Because ordinary life was better with her in it. Lila nodded. Yes. The garden erupted. She immediately pointed at the staff. I said keep working. Nobody listened. Damien stood. Lila looked down at the cheesecake, then at him. So you really weren't pointing at this? Damien shook his head. No. Still seems possible. He pulled her closer. I was always pointing at you. Then he kissed her. And this time, no florist called. No microphone screamed. No waiter dropped anything. Almost. Behind them, someone knocked over a tray. Lila pulled away, looked toward the sound. Damien caught her face gently. No, but someone else can handle it. Lila stared. The tray remained on the floor. A supervisor rushed over. Everything survived. Lila slowly looked back at Damien. He smiled. She smiled too. Progress. 6 months later, they finally did it properly. No trap. No hidden cameras. No murder suspects. No fake evidence. No strategic trust deadline. Just a wedding. Lila planned almost none of it. That was Damien's condition. She was the bride. For once. Somebody else worried about chairs. Somebody else checked candles. Somebody else panicked when a florist arrived late. Lila sat upstairs with Aunt Gloria, who had been crying since breakfast. You'll ruin your makeup. I waited 29 years for this. You did not start when I was born. I knew you would be difficult. Lila laughed. Gloria fastened the pearl earrings she'd tried to force on her months earlier. Then she looked at Lila. Beautiful. Curvy. Happy. Not transformed. Not rescued. Still Lila. The same woman who could run a ballroom while eating cheesecake. Downstairs. Damien waited. Luca stood beside him. Serious. Mostly. Lila had eventually discovered the wine cellar story. Luca still blamed Damien. Their friendship survived. Sebastian attended quietly after making substantial amends and cooperating fully in Matteo's trial. No easy absolution, but a beginning. When the music started, Damien looked toward the doors. And there she was, Lila, walking toward him. No performance, no one to convince. No dangerous game. Damien smiled, before she even reached him. A real smile. Aunt Gloria saw it. Immediately whispered too loudly, I knew he could. Half the front row laughed. Lila heard. Of course she did. She looked at Damien. He looked at her, and the ceremony began. Later, at the reception, Lila escaped for exactly 40 seconds. Damien found her beside the dessert table. Naturally, raspberry cheesecake. She had one in her hand. He leaned against the table. "You're hiding. I am resting. From our wedding. From Aunt Gloria. She has introduced me to 47 relatives. 49. Lila stared. "You counted?" "Yes." Of course he had. She took a bite. A tiny smear of cream caught near her cheek. Damien saw. He reached over, wiped it away. Lila smiled. "Déjà vu." "Yes." She looked at him, then toward the garden where he had first pointed. "Do you ever think about how ridiculous this was?" "Frequently." "You picked an event planner to help expose a murderer." "Yes." "She invented peacocks." "Yes." "Cancelled your first wedding." "Yes." "Made you date normally." Damien's expression became grave. "The greatest hardship." Lila laughed, then softened. "And you still married her." Damien took the cheesecake from her hand, placed it down, pulled her closer. "No." Her eyebrows rose. "No? I married you because of all of it." That silenced her. For approximately 2 seconds. Then, "You know that was disgustingly romantic. I've improved." Apparently, he kissed her. And somewhere behind them, Aunt Gloria began calling Lila's name. Lila didn't move. Damien didn't either. For once, the event could survive without its planner. Because Lila Bennett had spent years standing at the edge of other people's celebrations, making everything beautiful, fixing every disaster, and disappearing again before anyone thought to ask who had made it possible. Then one night, Damien Moretti looked across a crowded garden, past the heiresses, past the socialites, past everyone trying desperately to be noticed, and pointed at the one woman who wasn't trying at all. He thought he was choosing the perfect partner for a dangerous game. He was wrong. He was choosing the woman who would expose his family's deepest secret, make ordinary life more entertaining than danger, teach him that love could exist without control, and become the person he wanted beside him, long after there was nothing left to investigate. Aunt Gloria had sent Lila to find a husband. Technically, Lila failed. She never found one. The Mafia boss found her. And this time, when Damien pointed across the garden, there was no strategy, no conspiracy, and absolutely no confusion about the cheesecake.